Hey everyone, tonight we're exploring the quiet revolution of feeding and organizing thousands of workers who built humanity's most enduring monuments. Before we settle in, take a moment to like this if you enjoy these peaceful historical journeys, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love how our global community comes together to explore these fascinating organizational puzzles. Now, get comfortable, dim those lights. Tonight, we're not chasing dramatic pharaohs or heroic tales of ancient glory. Instead, we're going to examine something much quieter but equally remarkable: the sophisticated systems that fed, housed, and coordinated the pyramid builders of ancient Egypt. Let's begin our gentle journey into the archaeological revolution that transformed our understanding of how these monuments were truly built. Picture the Giza Plateau at dawn, 4,500 years ago. As the first light touches the limestone blocks, the gentle sounds of a massive community awakening drift across the desert air. Bread ovens are firing up, beer is brewing in great vats, and work gangs are assembling with the quiet efficiency of a well-orchestrated system. This wasn't the chaotic slave labor of popular imagination, but something far more sophisticated: a carefully planned economy that sustained thousands of skilled workers for decades. Recent archaeological discoveries have revealed worker villages with organized housing, systematic food distribution, and administrative records that document one of history's earliest experiments in large-scale labor management. Tonight, we'll explore how ancient Egyptian administrators solved the fundamental challenge of feeding and organizing massive construction projects, creating institutional innovations that would influence organizational thinking for millennia. We'll discover the gentle rhythms of daily bread production, the social dynamics of beer distribution, and the quiet administrative revolution that made the pyramids possible. This is the story of human cooperation at its most fundamental level: the patient work of turning grain into bread, coordinating thousands of individual efforts, and creating the systems that allowed ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things. In the gentle pre-dawn darkness of the Giza Plateau, where the ancient sands still whisper stories of human endeavor, archaeologists have uncovered one of history's most profound revelations about the nature of work, community, and the quiet dignity of human cooperation. For generations, the Great Pyramids stood as monuments shrouded in mystery, their construction attributed to the harsh labor of enslaved masses, driven by the whips of cruel overseers. Yet beneath the shifting sands, a different story waited patiently to be told: one of skilled communities, sophisticated organization, and the remarkable human capacity to create enduring beauty through collective effort. The archaeological revolution that transformed our understanding of pyramid construction began quietly, as most profound discoveries do. In 1988, when Dr. Mark Lehner first began his systematic excavations of the worker villages at Giza, he was following traces of ancient walls and refuse heaps that had been largely ignored by earlier expeditions focused on the grandeur of royal tombs. What emerged from these humble beginnings was nothing less than a complete reimagining of how ancient Egypt organized and sustained one of humanity's most ambitious construction projects. The evidence emerged slowly, piece by careful piece, like a vast puzzle assembled grain by grain. Pottery shards revealed the remnants of bread molds designed for mass production. Beer jars, still bearing the residue of ancient fermentation, spoke of systematic brewing operations. Most remarkably, the foundations of worker housing began to appear, Not the temporary shelters one might expect for enslaved laborers, but permanent structures designed for families, complete with cooking areas, storage facilities, and spaces for communal gathering. As the excavations continued year after year, a picture emerged of worker communities that challenged every assumption about ancient labor organization. The cemetery discoveries proved particularly illuminating, revealing skeletal remains that told stories of adequate nutrition, medical care, and respectful burial practices. These were not the bones of the oppressed, but of skilled workers who had lived lives of purpose and dignity, their bodies showing the natural wear of honest labor, rather than the devastating marks of brutal exploitation. The transformation in scholarly understanding was gradual but profound. Where once historians had imagined vast gangs of enslaved workers driven by desperation and fear, archaeological evidence revealed communities of skilled craftsmen, seasonal agricultural workers, and specialized laborers who had chosen to participate in projects that would define their civilization for millennia. The administrative papyri fragments, carefully preserved in the dry desert air, told of systematic record-keeping, fair ration distribution, and the complex logistics required to feed and house thousands of workers over decades of construction. Perhaps most remarkably, the archaeological record revealed that these worker communities were not isolated labor camps, but integrated settlements where families lived, children grew up, and skilled knowledge passed from generation to generation. The workshops showed evidence of apprenticeship systems where master craftsmen taught their techniques to younger workers, ensuring that the institutional knowledge required for pyramid construction would survive across the long decades needed to complete these monumental projects. The quiet revolution in understanding pyramid labor reflects a broader transformation in how we comprehend ancient human societies. Rather than viewing the past through the lens of exploitation and oppression, the archaeological evidence invites us to consider the remarkable sophistication of ancient organizational systems and the fundamental human capacity for cooperation in pursuit of shared goals. The worker villages at Giza stand as testament to the possibility that even the most ambitious human undertakings can be achieved through systems that honor both efficiency and human dignity. As we contemplate these discoveries in the peaceful hours before sleep, we might reflect on the timeless nature of human cooperation and the quiet satisfaction that comes from understanding how our ancestors solved the complex challenges of organizing large-scale collective effort. The archaeological record offers us not just knowledge of the past, but insight into the enduring human capacity for creating beauty and meaning through the patient work of skilled hands and thoughtful minds. The gentle morning light filtering across the Giza Plateau reveals patterns that have persisted for millennia, patterns that speak to humanity's remarkable capacity for organization and cooperation. As we move deeper into understanding the sophisticated systems that built the pyramids, we encounter one of ancient Egypt's most remarkable institutional innovations, the Philae system, a framework for organizing human labor that transformed seasonal agricultural workers into coordinated construction teams capable of moving mountains of stone. The word phyle derives from the ancient Egyptian term for the sacred boats that carried the pharaoh through the afterlife, and this naming convention reveals something profound about how the Egyptians understood their work. Each construction gang bore the name of one of these celestial vessels, creating a spiritual dimension to what might otherwise seem like mere physical labor. The Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure were not simply work crews, but communities bound together by shared purpose and divine association. Archaeological evidence from the worker villages reveals the elegant simplicity of this organizational structure. Each philae consisted of approximately 200 men, divided into smaller groups of 20 workers each. These smaller units, called crews, functioned as the basic building blocks of pyramid construction, each with its own foreman, its own tools, and its own section of the great work. The beauty of this system lay in its scalability. The same organizational principles that governed 20 men could be expanded to coordinate thousands. The rhythms of this organization followed patterns as natural as the Nile's flood cycle. Work gangs rotated through different phases of construction, spending perhaps 2 months hauling stones from the quarries, then rotating to ramp construction, then to the precise work of placing blocks in the pyramid itself. This rotation prevented the monotony that might have undermined morale, while ensuring that each worker developed multiple skills essential to the project's success. What emerges from the archaeological record is a picture of remarkable institutional sophistication. Foremen carried wooden tablets inscribed with hieroglyphic work assignments, consulting these throughout the day as they coordinated their crew's activities. The discovery of these tablets, preserved in the dry Egyptian climate, provides intimate glimpses into the daily management of pyramid construction. One tablet records the assignment of specific workers to transport granite blocks from Aswan, while another details the rotation schedule for teams working on the pyramid's internal chambers. The integration of skilled craftsmen with general laborers created a complex social ecosystem within the worker communities. Master stone cutters, whose expertise had been honed over decades, worked alongside farmers who had never seen stone larger than what they might clear from their fields. This mixing of skill levels required careful management, and the evidence suggests that the Egyptians developed sophisticated mentorship systems. Experienced workers were assigned responsibility for training newcomers, creating bonds that extended beyond the construction site into the broader worker community. The administrative coordination required to maintain this system speaks to an institutional memory that transcended individual projects. The same organizational principles that governed the construction of Khufu's pyramid were refined and applied to subsequent projects, creating a tradition of expertise that persisted across generations. Papyrus fragments reveal that foremen's sons often followed their fathers into construction management, while skilled craftsmen established family workshops that served multiple pyramid projects. Perhaps most remarkably, this organizational framework accommodated the seasonal rhythms of Egyptian agriculture. During the Nile's flood season, when farming was impossible, agricultural workers could be seamlessly integrated into construction crews. When the floods receded and planting season arrived, many workers returned to their fields, while a core of permanent construction specialists maintained continuity on the building sites. This flexibility allowed the pyramid projects to draw upon Egypt's entire labor force without disrupting the agricultural foundation of the economy. The evening hours in the worker villages reveal another dimension of this organizational achievement. As the day's work concluded, the philaes maintained their identity through shared meals, storytelling, and informal competitions. Archaeological evidence suggests that different gangs developed distinctive cultural practices, creating a sense of healthy rivalry that motivated exceptional performance. The drunkards of Menkor were known for their elaborate evening celebrations, while the Friends of Khufu took pride in their precision and efficiency. This institutional framework represents one of humanity's earliest experiments in large-scale project management, creating systems that balanced efficiency with human dignity, economic necessity with social cohesion. The gentle wisdom embedded in these ancient organizational principles continues to resonate across the millennia, offering insights into the timeless challenge of coordinating human effort toward common goals. The gentle rhythm of daily sustenance that sustained the pyramid builders reveals itself most clearly in the archaeological remnants of their bread-making operations, where the fundamental human need for nourishment intersected with the unprecedented scale of monumental construction. As dawn broke over the Giza Plateau, the first sounds to emerge from the worker villages were not the calls of foremen or the scraping of tools against stone, but the soft whoosh of air being pumped into bread ovens and the quiet conversations of bakers beginning their essential work. The archaeological evidence for worker nutrition presents a remarkably sophisticated picture of dietary planning that challenges our assumptions about ancient labor management. Excavations at the worker village have uncovered massive bread ovens capable of producing thousands of loaves daily, their clay-lined chambers still bearing the carbonized remains of the bread that once sustained pyramid construction. These ovens, some measuring over 2 meters in diameter, represent a technological adaptation that transformed household bread-making techniques into industrial-scale food production, revealing an understanding of nutrition and logistics that rivals modern construction site catering. The bread itself formed the cornerstone of worker nutrition, providing the complex carbohydrates necessary for sustained physical labor. Archaeological analysis of preserved bread remains and baking equipment suggests that pyramid workers consumed a variety of bread types, from coarse barley loaves that provided filling sustenance to finer wheat breads that may have been reserved for skilled craftsmen or special occasions. The standardization of bread molds found throughout the worker village indicates a systematic approach to portion control and distribution, ensuring that each worker received consistent nutrition regardless of their specific role in the construction process. Modern nutritional analysis of the worker diet reveals a carefully balanced approach to feeding a labor force engaged in extraordinarily demanding physical work. The daily bread ration alone would have provided approximately 3,000 calories per worker, supplemented by additional foods that brought the total daily intake to levels appropriate for heavy construction labor. This calculation suggests that Egyptian administrators possessed an intuitive understanding of the relationship between nutrition and productivity, recognizing that well-fed workers could maintain the consistent effort required for multi-decade construction projects. The bread production process itself required its own complex organization, beginning with the massive grain storage facilities that archaeologists have identified near the worker villages. These granaries, constructed with sophisticated ventilation systems to prevent spoilage, could store thousands of tons of grain, representing months of food security for the construction workforce. The transformation of grain into bread involved multiple specialized roles: grain cleaners who removed chaff and debris, millers who ground wheat and barley into flour, and bakers who worked in coordinated teams to maintain continuous bread production throughout the construction season. The social dynamics of bread distribution reveal additional layers of organizational sophistication. Archaeological evidence suggests that different types of bread were allocated based on worker status and role, with skilled stone cutters and experienced foremen receiving higher quality wheat bread, while general laborers received more basic barley loaves. This differentiation served multiple purposes. It provided incentives for skill development and loyal service while ensuring that the most critical workers maintained optimal nutrition for their demanding tasks. The timing of bread production and distribution followed carefully planned schedules that coordinated with work rhythms and seasonal patterns. Fresh bread was typically distributed in the early morning before work began, with additional rations provided during midday breaks when workers needed to replenish their energy for afternoon labor. Evening distributions often included day-old bread that could be stored for the following day, ensuring that workers had access to food even during periods of intense construction activity when normal meal schedules might be disrupted. The cultural significance of bread in ancient Egyptian society added another dimension to worker nutrition, transforming simple sustenance into a form of social contract between rulers and workers. The provision of daily bread represented more than mere caloric requirements. It embodied the pharaoh's responsibility to care for those who labored on his eternal monuments. This understanding helps explain the archaeological evidence for consistently high-quality bread production throughout the construction period, even when regional harvests might have been variable. The integration of bread production with other aspects of worker provisioning reveals the sophisticated planning that characterized pyramid construction logistics. Bread ovens were typically located near beer brewing facilities, allowing bakers and brewers to coordinate their use of grain and fuel while creating efficient workflows that minimized waste and maximized productivity. The peaceful coexistence of these complementary food production systems created worker village environments where the aromas of fresh bread and fermenting beer mingled in the morning air, providing sensory comfort that helped maintain morale during the long years of construction. The gentle morning mist that rose from the Nile each dawn carried with it the rich, yeasty aroma of beer brewing in massive quantities across the Giza Plateau. This was not the casual brewing of individual households, but rather an industrial operation of remarkable sophistication, designed to sustain thousands of workers engaged in humanity's most ambitious construction projects. The archaeological evidence reveals that beer production for pyramid workers represented one of ancient Egypt's most successful examples of scaling up traditional processes to meet unprecedented demands. In the worker villages that archaeologists have uncovered near the Great Pyramids, the brewing installations tell a story of careful planning and systematic organization. These were not simple household brewing operations expanded haphazardly, but rather purpose-built facilities designed from the ground up to produce beer in quantities that modern breweries would find impressive. The remains of massive brewing vats, each capable of producing hundreds of gallons of beer, stand as testament to the administrative foresight that went into feeding and hydrating the pyramid workforce. The process began before dawn, when specialized brewing teams would arrive at the facilities to begin the day's production. The rhythmic sounds of their work, the gentle splash of water being added to grain, the steady grinding of malted barley, the careful stirring of fermenting mixtures, created a peaceful industrial symphony that would have been audible across the worker settlements. These brewers were skilled craftsmen in their own right, possessing knowledge passed down through generations about the precise timing and techniques required to produce consistent, nutritious beer on a massive scale. Archaeological analysis of the brewing equipment reveals the sophisticated understanding these ancient brewers possessed of their craft. The fermentation vessels were designed with specific proportions that modern brewing science recognizes as optimal for producing stable, palatable beer. The heating systems, built into the ground with carefully arranged stones and clay channels, provided even temperature control that would have been essential for consistent fermentation. Even the drainage systems around the brewing areas show evidence of careful planning to manage the substantial quantities of water required for large-scale beer production. The beer itself served multiple crucial functions in the pyramid construction economy. From a purely nutritional standpoint, it provided essential calories and B vitamins that workers needed for sustained physical labor. The fermentation process created a beverage that was safer to drink than water, particularly important given the challenges of maintaining clean water supplies for thousands of people. But perhaps most importantly, beer served as a social lubricant that helped maintain morale and community cohesion among workers who came from different regions and backgrounds. The daily beer ration for pyramid workers was substantial by any standard. Textual evidence suggests that workers received several liters of beer per day, distributed at regular intervals throughout their shifts. This was not weak beer, but rather a nutritious beverage with significant caloric content that contributed meaningfully to workers' daily energy requirements. The distribution system itself required careful coordination. Beer had to be produced, stored, and distributed fresh, as the ancient brewing techniques did not produce beverages with long shelf lives. The economic implications of this beer production system were profound. The grain requirements alone represented a significant portion of the pyramid construction budget, requiring coordination with agricultural regions throughout Egypt to ensure adequate supply. The brewing operations required their own workforce of skilled specialists, from the master brewers who oversaw production to the workers who transported grain and distributed finished beer. This created a complex economic ecosystem where the simple act of keeping workers hydrated became a major industrial undertaking. Modern analysis of residues from ancient brewing vessels has revealed the sophisticated techniques these brewers employed. They used a combination of barley and emmer wheat, carefully malted and processed to maximize both flavor and nutritional content. The addition of dates and other fruits provided natural sugars that aided fermentation while adding vitamins and minerals to the final product. Some evidence suggests they even used herbs and spices, both for flavor and for their preservative properties. The social dimensions of beer consumption in the worker villages were equally important. Evening gatherings, where workers shared their daily beer rations, became opportunities for community building, skill sharing, and maintaining the social bonds that made large-scale cooperation possible. These informal social institutions, lubricated by the shared consumption of beer, helped create the sense of common purpose that was essential for the success of pyramid construction projects. The brewing schedule itself had to be carefully coordinated with the rhythms of construction work. Beer production required several days from start to finish, meaning that brewers had to plan ahead to ensure that fresh beer would be available when workers needed it. This required sophisticated scheduling and inventory management, with backup systems to handle unexpected delays or increased demand during particularly intensive construction periods. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Giza Plateau as the aroma of roasting meat mingled with the ever-present scent of baking bread, creating a sensory landscape that spoke to the remarkable prosperity of these ancient construction communities. Archaeological excavations have revealed something quite extraordinary about the diet of pyramid workers. These were not the meager rations of enslaved labor, but rather the substantial provisions of valued craftsmen whose physical demands required exceptional nourishment. The bone assemblages discovered in worker village refuse areas paint a vivid picture of dietary abundance that challenges our preconceptions about ancient labor conditions. Cattle bones, carefully butchered and distributed, comprise a significant portion of the archaeological record, alongside the remains of sheep, goats, and even wild game. The sheer quantity of meat consumption evidenced at these sites suggests an economic commitment to worker welfare that was both pragmatic and unprecedented in scale. Consider the logistics involved in providing fresh meat to thousands of workers on a regular basis. The administrative papyri fragments recovered from the site reference complex systems for managing livestock from the pastoral regions of the Nile Delta to the butchering facilities adjacent to the construction zones. Herds of cattle, tended by specialized pastoralists, moved in carefully orchestrated patterns to ensure a steady supply of fresh protein. The economic implications were staggering. Maintaining sufficient livestock to feed a workforce of this magnitude represented a substantial investment in human capital. The archaeological evidence suggests that meat distribution followed sophisticated patterns of social differentiation. Higher status workers, including master craftsmen and gang leaders, received choice cuts and larger portions, while general laborers enjoyed regular, if more modest, meat rations. This system of graduated provisioning served multiple functions. It provided necessary nutrition for demanding physical labor, maintained social hierarchies that facilitated project management, and created incentives for skill development and loyal service. The preparation and distribution of meat required its own specialized infrastructure. Excavations have revealed large cooking areas with multiple hearths designed to accommodate the simultaneous preparation of meals for hundreds of workers. The careful positioning of these facilities, with attention to wind patterns and proximity to both storage areas and worker housing, demonstrates thoughtful planning that prioritized both efficiency and worker comfort. The evening meal, with its communal preparation and consumption of meat, became a daily ritual that reinforced social bonds within the worker community. Seasonal variations in meat availability created interesting challenges for the provisioning administrators. During the annual Nile flood, when agricultural work ceased and the workforce swelled with temporary laborers, the demand for meat reached its peak. Archaeological evidence suggests that administrators planned for these fluctuations, coordinating hunting expeditions and fish catches to supplement livestock production. The discovery of fish bones and wild fowl remains indicates that the worker diet was diversified through multiple protein sources, creating both nutritional variety and economic flexibility. The religious and ceremonial dimensions of meat consumption added another layer of complexity to the provisioning system. Special feast days, marking significant construction milestones or religious observances, required extraordinary quantities of meat. The archaeological record preserves evidence of these celebrations. Areas of concentrated bone deposits, often associated with beer jars and bread remains, suggesting communal feasting on a grand scale. These occasions serve not only as morale boosters, but as demonstrations of royal largesse and project success. The economic burden of providing meat to the pyramid workforce was substantial, yet the evidence suggests that this investment was considered essential rather than extravagant. The physical demands of moving massive stone blocks, operating complex ramps and levers, and maintaining the precision required for pyramid construction necessitated workers with exceptional strength and endurance. Modern nutritional analysis of the archaeological evidence indicates that the protein intake of these workers exceeded that of many contemporary populations, reflecting a clear understanding of the relationship between nutrition and productivity. The butchering and meat distribution systems developed for pyramid construction represented innovations in large-scale food management that would influence Egyptian administrative practices for centuries. The careful documentation of meat allocations, preserved in fragmentary papyri, reveals sophisticated accounting methods that tracked not only quantities, but also quality grades and distribution schedules. These records provide glimpses into the daily rhythms of worker life, where the anticipation of the evening meat ration provided motivation through long days of demanding labor. The gentle rustle of papyrus scrolls in the morning breeze carried with it the whispered secrets of ancient organizational mastery. Within the administrative centers that dotted the Giza Plateau, scribes bent over their reed pens with the same quiet concentration that had characterized their predecessors for generations. These men, trained from childhood in the intricate art of hieroglyphic writing and mathematical calculation, formed the invisible backbone of the pyramid construction enterprise. Their careful records, preserved in the dry Egyptian climate for millennia, reveal a sophistication in resource management that rivals modern administrative systems. The scribal schools of ancient Egypt had evolved over centuries to produce administrators capable of managing projects of unprecedented scale. Young men selected for their intelligence and steady hands learned not merely to write, but to think systematically about complex logistical challenges. They mastered the art of calculating grain quantities needed to feed thousands of workers, the precise measurements required for stone cutting, and the delicate balance between resource allocation and project timelines. In the quiet halls where they studied, surrounded by the soft scratching of practice tablets, these future administrators absorbed the institutional wisdom that would make pyramid construction possible. Archaeological excavations have revealed the physical infrastructure of this administrative system with remarkable clarity. Storage facilities arranged in systematic rows, each marked with hieroglyphic labels indicating contents and quantities, demonstrate the methodical approach to inventory management. Granaries built with careful attention to ventilation and pest control protected the vast stores of grain that sustained the workforce. The discovery of standardized measuring vessels, each inscribed with official seals, speaks to the development of quality control systems that ensured consistent rations across the entire construction site. The daily rhythm of administrative work began before dawn, as senior scribes reviewed the previous day's consumption reports and planned the current day's distributions. Papyrus records show meticulous attention to detail. Specific quantities of bread allocated to different categories of workers, beer rations adjusted for seasonal variations in brewing, meat distributions carefully planned around religious festivals and construction milestones. These documents reveal administrators who understood that worker morale and productivity depended not merely on adequate nutrition, but on the perception of fairness and consistency in treatment. Regional coordination required even greater administrative sophistication. The pyramid construction projects drew resources from across Egypt, necessitating a complex network of communication and transportation. Scribes in delta villages recorded grain harvests and calculated surplus available for pyramid workers. Administrative centers in Upper Egypt coordinated limestone quarrying and river transport. The integration of these diverse sources required careful timing and precise record-keeping, as delays in any component could disrupt the entire construction schedule. The hierarchical structure of pyramid administration reflected centuries of Egyptian governmental experience, adapted to the unique challenges of large-scale construction. Senior administrators, often drawn from established noble families, provided strategic oversight and coordination with royal authorities. Middle-level managers, typically experienced scribes who had proven their competence in smaller projects, handled daily operational decisions. Junior clerks, many of them recent graduates from scribal schools, maintained the detailed records that formed the foundation of the entire system. Quality control mechanisms revealed the sophisticated understanding of organizational psychology that characterized Egyptian administration. Regular inspections ensured that food distributions met established standards, while surprise audits prevented the corruption that could undermine worker trust. The discovery of sealed storage areas, accessible only to authorized personnel, demonstrates the careful attention to security that protected valuable resources. Monthly reports, prepared with standardized formats and submitted to royal overseers, created accountability systems that maintained efficiency across the entire project. The integration of local production with regional trade networks required administrative innovation that extended far beyond the construction site itself. Scribes maintained detailed records of seasonal agricultural cycles, coordinating pyramid provisioning with the natural rhythms of Egyptian farming. They developed sophisticated forecasting methods, predicting future resource needs based on construction progress and worker population projections. The peaceful efficiency of these systems, operating with minimal disruption to existing economic patterns, demonstrates the administrative wisdom that made pyramid construction sustainable over decades of continuous work. These ancient administrative innovations continue to inform our understanding of organizational behavior and resource management, their quiet efficiency echoing through the centuries in the enduring monuments they made possible. The archaeological evidence scattered across the Giza Plateau reveals not merely the remnants of construction activity, but the intimate traces of human community that flourished in the shadow of rising pyramids. In the worker villages that archaeologists have carefully uncovered, we find the gentle rhythms of daily life that sustained one of humanity's most ambitious undertakings. These settlements, far from being temporary camps hastily assembled for construction purposes, evolved into complex communities where families raised children, craftsmen perfected their skills, and social bonds formed that would endure long after the pyramids reached completion. The housing foundations that Mark Lena's team has methodically excavated reveal a sophisticated understanding of community planning. Workers' dwellings were arranged in orderly rows, with shared courtyards that fostered neighborly interaction and communal activities. The architecture itself speaks to the recognition that these laborers were not merely temporary resources to be housed efficiently, but human beings who required spaces for family life, social gathering, and personal expression. Archaeological evidence suggests that skilled craftsmen enjoyed larger living spaces, often with attached workshops where they could pursue specialized work during off hours, while general laborers shared more modest accommodations that nonetheless provided dignity and comfort. Within these communities, social stratification emerged naturally from the diverse skills and responsibilities required for pyramid construction. Master stone cutters, who possessed the precise knowledge needed to shape granite blocks with mathematical precision, occupied positions of respect and authority. Their expertise was complemented by the organizational skills of gang leaders, who coordinated the daily movements of hundreds of workers with the patience and wisdom that comes from understanding both human nature and construction logistics. Yet this hierarchy was tempered by the shared experience of collective endeavor, creating bonds that transcended individual status. The integration of skilled craftsmen with general laborers created a unique social dynamic where knowledge flowed freely between different levels of expertise. Evening gatherings in the communal areas provided opportunities for experienced workers to share techniques with newcomers, creating an informal educational system that preserved and transmitted construction knowledge. These interactions, revealed through the archaeological record of shared tools, common eating areas, and evidence of collaborative workshops demonstrate how the pyramid projects became centers of technological and social innovation. Family life within these worker communities required careful balance between the demands of construction work and domestic responsibilities. Archaeological evidence from refuse pits and storage areas suggests that workers' families maintained household economies that complemented the official food allocation systems. Women and children contributed to community life through textile production, food preparation, and the maintenance of household goods, creating a domestic sphere that provided stability and continuity amid the intensive demands of pyramid construction. The presence of children in these communities is particularly significant, as it indicates that pyramid construction was not viewed as temporary employment, but as a long-term career path that could sustain families across generations. Toy fragments, small tools sized for young hands, and evidence of educational activities suggest that children grew up learning construction skills alongside their formal education, creating a pipeline of skilled workers who would carry forward the institutional knowledge accumulated through decades of pyramid building. Community institutions emerged organically to meet the social and economic needs of these settlements. Archaeological evidence points to the existence of local markets where workers could trade goods, purchase items not provided through official channels, and engage in the small-scale commerce that enriches community life. Workshop areas, identifiable through the concentration of specialized tools and raw materials, served as centers of innovation where workers experimented with new techniques and refined existing methods. The social gathering places that archaeologists have identified through architectural remains and artifact distributions revealed the importance of communal celebration and ritual observance in maintaining community cohesion. These spaces, often marked by evidence of feast preparation and ceremonial activities, provided venues for workers to mark construction milestones, celebrate religious festivals, and maintain the cultural traditions that connected them to the broader Egyptian society. As we contemplate these ancient communities, we recognize in them the timeless human capacity to create meaningful social bonds, even within the context of demanding collective labor. The worker villages of Giza stand as testament to the understanding that great achievements require not only technical skill and administrative efficiency, but also the nurturing of human community and the recognition of individual dignity within collective endeavor. As we draw our contemplative journey through the organized world of pyramid construction to its gentle close, let us pause to absorb the profound wisdom embedded in these ancient systems of human cooperation. The archaeological evidence we have explored reveals not merely the mechanics of building monuments, but the deeper truth of how human societies create lasting institutions through careful attention to fundamental needs. The worker villages of Giza, with their systematic food allocation and thoughtful labor organization, represent one of humanity's earliest experiments in large-scale project management, where the welfare of thousands was balanced against the ambitious vision of creating eternal monuments. The gentle rhythm of daily life in these ancient communities speaks to timeless patterns of human organization. Each morning, as the sun rose over the Nile Delta, workers awakened to a world where their basic needs were anticipated and provided for through sophisticated administrative systems. The careful distribution of bread, the brewing of nutritious beer, the allocation of meat rations, and the maintenance of comfortable housing all reflect a deep understanding that monumental achievements require not just physical labor, but the creation of supportive communities where people can thrive while contributing to something greater than themselves. Consider how these ancient innovations continue to resonate in our modern understanding of organizational behavior. The file system of rotating work gangs, the hierarchical yet respectful management structures, the integration of skilled craftsmen with general laborers, and the careful attention to worker nutrition and health all demonstrate principles that remain relevant today. The scribes who meticulously recorded food distributions, the foremen who coordinated daily tasks, and the administrators who planned for multi-decade projects were engaged in the same fundamental challenge we face in any complex undertaking: how to organize human effort effectively while maintaining dignity and care for those who contribute their labor. The archaeological record from these worker communities reveals the quiet satisfaction of people engaged in meaningful work, adequately fed and housed, contributing their skills to projects that would outlast their own lifetimes. The evidence of proper medical care, the discovery of worker cemeteries with respectful burials, and the remains of comfortable housing all speak to a society that understood the connection between worker welfare and project success. This ancient wisdom reminds us that the most enduring achievements emerge not from exploitation or coercion, but from systems that honor the fundamental human need for security, purpose, and community. As we reflect on these discoveries, we can imagine the peaceful satisfaction of workers returning to their families each evening, sharing meals prepared in community ovens, discussing the day's progress on the great monuments rising on the plateau. The gentle sounds of children playing, the comfortable conversations of skilled craftsmen sharing techniques, the quiet pride of contributing to something magnificent and eternal. These human elements transform our understanding of pyramid construction, from a story of monumental engineering to a narrative of human cooperation and institutional wisdom. Let your mind rest now in the contemplation of these ancient communities, where the rhythm of daily work was balanced with adequate rest, where the provision of food was systematic and generous, where the organization of labor respected both individual skills and collective needs. Picture the archaeological sites where these discoveries were made: the careful uncovering of bread ovens and beer jars, the gentle revelation of housing foundations and administrative records, each artifact a quiet testament to the thoughtful organization of human effort. The pyramids themselves stand as eternal monuments not just to royal ambition, but to the capacity of human societies to create institutions that serve both individual welfare and collective achievement. As you drift into peaceful rest, carry with you the image of these ancient workers, their needs carefully provided for, their skills respectfully utilized, their communities thoughtfully organized, contributing day by day to monuments that continue to inspire wonder across millennia. In their quiet dedication and the systems that supported them, we find a timeless model of how human cooperation can create lasting beauty and meaning. A gentle reminder that our greatest achievements emerge from the patient, careful organization of daily care and collective effort.